Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Audio Listener Podcast. Today's episode is slow, simple, and very real. We're talking about everyday phrasal verbs, the ones people actually use when they talk about life, work, feelings, and relationships. So relax, listen carefully, and let's catch up. Let's start with a very warm and friendly phrasal verb catch up. You'll hear this one everywhere, especially when people talk about relationships, friends, and life. To catch up means to talk to someone after a long time and share what's been happening in your life. It's not about speed. It's not about running. It's about connection. Imagine you haven't spoken to a friend for months, maybe even years. When you finally meet, you don't just say hello and leave. You sit down, talk, laugh, and update each other on life. That moment, that conversation is called catching up. For example, let's catch up this weekend. I need to catch up with my old friend. We caught up over coffee. This phrasal verb feels friendly, relaxed, and personal. It's never formal, and that's why people love using it. Burnout. Now, let's talk about a very real and very serious one, burnout. Burnout does not mean you are lazy. It does not mean you don't care. Burnout happens when you work too hard for too long without giving yourself enough rest. At first, everything feels fine. You feel motivated. You feel strong. You feel focused. But slowly, something changes. You wake up feeling tired, even after sleeping. You feel mentally exhausted. Things that once excited you now feel heavy. That feeling is called burnout. For example, I burned out at work. She burned out during exam season. He burned out from studying every day without breaks. Burnout is very common among students, workers, and English learners who push themselves too hard. That's why this phrasal verb is used with empathy. When someone says, "I'm burned out," what they're really saying is, "I need rest." Zone out. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever been sitting in a class, a meeting, or even listening to a friend and suddenly you realize your mind is somewhere else? You're there physically, you're looking at the person, but mentally you're thinking about something completely different? That moment when your attention slowly disappears is called zoning out. Now this is important. Zone out does not mean you are rude. It does not mean you don't care. It usually happens because you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. That's why people often use this phrasal verb to explain themselves politely. For example, instead of saying, "I wasn't listening," which sounds a little harsh, people say, "Sorry, I zoned out during the lecture." Or, "He usually zones out when he's tired." So remember, zone out is a very human phrasal verb. It's honest, gentle, and very common in daily English. Put, OFF. Now, let's talk about another very real one, put off. When you put something off, you delay it, but not because you forgot. And not always because you're busy. Most of the time, you put something off because emotionally, you're not ready to face it. Maybe you feel scared. Maybe you feel lazy. Or maybe you're afraid of failing. For example, many English learners say, "I keep putting off my English practice." That sentence doesn't mean they don't care about English. It means they feel pressure, they feel fear, they feel tired of trying to be perfect. Another example is, "She put off the doctor's appointment." Again, not because she forgot, but because emotionally, it felt difficult. People usually put off things that make them uncomfortable. Run into. All right, let's move to something lighter. Run into. This is an easy and friendly phrasal verb. To asterisk run into someone means you meet them unexpectedly. No planning, no message, no invitation. You're just living your normal life. And suddenly, you see someone, For example, I ran into my old classmate at the mall. Or when someone starts a story and says, "Guess who I ran into today?" This phrasal verb always sounds casual and natural. You'll hear it everywhere in real conversations. Figure out. Now, let's talk about a very important one, figure out. To figure something out means you don't understand it immediately. You think about it. You make mistakes. And slowly, step by step, it becomes clear. This phrasal verb is about process, not instant success. For example, I'm trying to figure out English grammar. That sentence shows effort. It shows confusion, but it also shows hope. Another example, she finally figured out what she really wants in life. That usually doesn't happen in one day. It happens through experience. Feel up to. Now, let's slow down with a very soft and polite one, feel up to. When you say, I don't feel up to something, you're saying, I don't have the emotional or mental energy right now. Not because you're lazy, but because you're human. For example, I don't feel up to going out tonight. Or, do you feel up to talking? This phrasal verb is kind. It respects boundaries, and it sounds very natural in English. Cut down on. Next one is cut down on. This phrasal verb is very common when people talk about habits and health. When you cut down on something, you're not stopping it completely. You're just trying to reduce it slowly. For example, I'm cutting down on sugar. Or, she's cutting down on social media. This phrasal verb shows balance. It shows small, realistic change, not pressure. Get through. Now this one is emotional get through. To get through something means it was hard, stressful or painful, but you survived it. You didn't enjoy it. You didn't find it easy, but you made it. For example, I don't know how I got through last year. Or, we'll get through this together. This phrasal verb carries strength, support, and hope. End up. And finally, end up. We use end up when life doesn't follow our original plan. You start with one idea, but the final result is different. For example, I planned to study, but I ended up sleeping. Or, he didn't like the job at first, but she ended up loving it. Life is full of surprises, and that's why end up is such a common phrasal verb. So today, instead of memorizing phrasal verbs, you listened to how they live inside real moments. Listen again, notice them around you, and slowly they'll become part of your English. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.